noting that if you've got a trial subscription or a trial license or a license, then access of content is considered controlled. Content that has been made freely available but is not OA Gold, so this might be, for example, an article that's been made available free of charge for marketing purposes, that type of content is considered controlled. Content items that are offered as open after an embargo period, so with some journals you might get 3 months, you might get 6 months, you might get 12 months, and then articles are made available. Those content items are currently considered controlled. Next slide, please. Okay, so what you can see on the slide there, and we have had to squash a lot of information in there, but what you can see on that screenshot, you'll see that access type is a column heading. And the data in the fields in that column, which we've tried to make a little bit larger there, you can see is separated into controlled and OA Gold usage. Now you can filter the reports on this attribute to make it easier to see what's going on there. Next slide, please. There's another point we just need to bring to your attention, and that is that in Counter R5 report, so in release 5 of the Counter Code of Practice, OA Gold usage may be incomplete, and that's because there's no access control for open access articles. So publishers and you may not always know where that usage is coming from. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the title master report, there is masses of data, a wealth of data on there. The report includes usage of Gold open access articles and controlled articles. And from this title master report, the publisher creates a number of standard views. Now, standard views are subsets of the master report. In some of the standard views, usage of Gold open access is included. So for journal usage, TRJ3 will give you that information. And for book usage, you'll find that information in TRB3. Now, the master report and the TRJ3 are especially useful if you want to see what proportion of your usage from hybrid journals comes from OA Gold articles and what proportion is from articles funded by one of your subscriptions. Next slide, please. Now, you might have noticed that some of the standard views, like the TRJ1 report, for example, exclude usage of Gold open access content. And this is because when evaluating hybrid journals, there are many librarians who prefer to count only the usage of articles funded by their subscription. I'm going to hand you back to Lorraine for the rest of the webinar.
Thank you, Paula. Before we go on, we've covered quite a lot already, and I just wonder if any of you have any questions about the definitions we've spoken about or about the reports before we bombard you with even more information. If you do have any questions, you might want to put them in the chat box. No, I can't see any questions. Okay, I'll move on, but do let us know if you have any questions as we carry on. So I have a couple of scenarios to talk through here with you. As Paula has just said, very often a librarian will want to exclude the use of OA Gold because they want to calculate cost per use based on just the articles which are covered by their subscription, and they want to exclude the OA Gold article usage. And a very quick way that you can do that is just by taking the standard view, which is called TRJ1. And TRJ1 is the standard view report, counter report, which has already excluded the OA Gold. So you don't have to do anything. you have just got the usage statistics for controlled use there. So in this scenario 1, Barbara, the librarian at our imaginary Camford University, subscribes to a journal, and she can see that the controlled use for the year of this particular journal was 60,000 unique item requests, and the university pays £25,000 for that journal. So she can very quickly and easily do that calculation to calculate that each unique item requests is costing 42 pence. And of course, that calculation would apply whatever currency, euros or dollars that you were using. So a very quick and easy calculation. Some of you who might have used Release 4 reports will remember that it was quite a complicated effort, because you had to take the GOA report and subtract the total from the JR1 before you could do that simple calculation. So Release 5 makes it very easy, and as I say, all you need to do is take the TRJ1. However, having said that, a lot of institutions are very interested in seeing what proportion of the journals they subscribe to, what proportion of the usage is for open access. And there's all sorts of reasons that they might want to do that. They might want to look at that over time to see if the proportion of open access usage is increasing. And if they are funding, for example, read and publish type deals, again, that sort of information is quite interesting as well in that perspective, when they are paying for their institution is paying for the authors to publish as well as to read the articles in a journal. So Barbara, our librarian, is interested to know what the usage was also of the open access content. And in this case, she takes the standard view, the TRJ3. She could also, if she wanted to, take the master report, but because both of those reports show both types of access. And here, as you can see in these little calculations, she has already got the access type controlled. She knows that from the TRJ1, which was 60,000 unique item requests. But she can see from this report that there was also a fair amount of usage by her institution of the open access content in that particular journal, 7,000 unique item requests. So armed with that information, Barbara can run another calculation. She's already calculated, we saw in the slide before last, that the per use cost for unique item requests calculates at 42 pence per usage for her institution. But she could also run the same calculation taking the 67,000 unique item requests, so both the controlled and the OO gold. And if she does that, you'll see that the cost per unique item request would be 37 pence in this case. But again, same calculation, whatever the currency that you're using. One of the useful things about this type of report is that it can be nicely visualized. And again, that's quite important, particularly when a library wants to get a feel for how much usage of the journals is open access and how much is controlled. And a nice pie diagram can do that very easily. Here, of course, we're talking about a journal, but it could be a collection of journals or the whole of a publisher's output. And again, a simple bar chart here. I'm sure many of you will have much nicer graphics you could bring to it to show the cost per use for the controlled only content and also for the open access content. So there are some very neat ways you could develop for your reports about usage. Are there any questions at this point before we move on? So please use the chat box. Oh, I can't see any. That's really great. Okay, thank you. Now, it is a little bit confusing because, as I say, some of the reports include both types of access, controlled and open access, and others only include controlled. And indeed, I have had a few panicked librarians contact me who perhaps when Release 5 was just first released, only saw the TRJ1 and said, oh my goodness, all the OA Gold usage has disappeared. Well, it hasn't. So I just put together this little table, and that just shows you which of the reports include both controlled and OA Gold, and where the OA Gold is excluded. And you can see that the OA Gold is excluded from the TRJ1 and the TRJ4. And that was very specifically so that you can do cost per use calculations very quickly. The TRJ4 report, that also includes year of publication. So you might want to filter out any years where you have a separate license because you bought access to those years under a separate archival or backfile license. OA Gold is already eliminated, and again, it's a very quick way of doing that cost per use calculation. But as I say, the other reports are very useful for looking at the whole picture. I have put a little asterisk here to remind me to mention that the TRJ2 report is about journal access denied. And although OA Gold is not excluded from that report in terms of the requirements of the Code of Practice, you wouldn't really expect to see OA Gold as an access type in that report, because the users, of course, should not have received any denial of access to get to an OA Gold article. And indeed, I think if you did see that cropping up, OA Gold, in the access type of the TRJ2 report, you might want to have a discussion with the publisher or vendor to ask them what was going on there. But anyway, hopefully that wouldn't happen, and all would be well. Now, finally, I just wanted to talk about fully open access journals and indeed fully open access books. Increasingly, institutions, and indeed to some extent the funders of research, are interested in usage statistics of fully open access journals. The history of counter and counter usage statistics is, of course, firmly embedded in the original subscription model from which it grew. But because institutions are increasingly funding transformative agreements, read and publish agreements and so on, they are interested in the wider picture. And I think at the moment we only have one fully OA publisher who is compliant with the Release 5 Code of Practice. But there are many more knocking on our door and planning to implement counter. So one of the problems for those open access journals is how they report. As Paula mentioned, very often it's difficult for them to know where usage is coming from. They can, and there are services like the IP registry, which can help them isolate usage by institution. So that is one way. But of course, if your user happens to be outside the IP range of your institution, that wouldn't be picked up. The other way that fully open access journals can report usage is by country, and again, that's usually by IP. Again, that won't pick up absolutely everything, because sometimes your users might be outside of the country, but it would pick up most and they would be able to report by country. And then the other option, and they're not mutually exclusive by any means, for a fully open access publisher is to report usage, the global usage of their content. And in that case, their reports, as you can see here, would be the institution name would be the world, because it would be a global report. We also think at Counter it's very important for open access publishers to adopt this international standard for reporting usage, because Counter is not just about the reports, it's also about the underlying data processing and ensuring that all publishers and vendors are processing the data in the same way, excluding double clicks, excluding the known robots and crawlers and so on. So we certainly expect to see many more open access publishers, as well as the hybrid and controlled using Counter reports shortly. Sorry. I'll also mention a little bit about open access books. Increasingly, institutions are interested in usage statistics of open access books, and a lot of this interest has been fueled by initiatives such as Knowledge Unlatched, where libraries contribute funding to unlatch books and make them open access. And one of the problems in that area in particular is that those books tend to be on lots of different platforms. They're not, by their very nature, they're open access books, and usage may be distributed. And there is a project going on at the moment that is really looking at how that usage can be pulled together so that libraries could get that global picture of open access use of a book. So that definitely is something to keep in mind for the future. The other thing when we're looking ahead into the future to think about is the usage of other types of open content. And in particular, a lot of librarians have told us that they are interested in knowing about the usage of articles that are openly available following an embargo period. I wouldn't necessarily call that type of content open access, because very often an open license isn't attached. But nonetheless, it is an important piece of information that librarians will want when they're evaluating content and its usage. We did some consultation last year, and I would say that there was about 70% in favour of having a new metric type which would identify that post-embargo open content. And that is something that the Counter Executive Committee is looking at. We would clearly give publishers a lead time for implementation if that goes ahead, but it's certainly something that we're looking at in the future. So I hope we've given you both an idea of how you can use the counter reports currently to understand the use of open access. But again, it's your opportunity to ask questions now on this theme. So do please use the chat box if you have any questions. Well, I can't see any questions. Well, hopefully that means that Paul and I have been very clear. There is more information available about counter reports and counter metrics. On our website, you will see our friendly guide, which gives you a very top level view of the Release 5 Code of Practice. We also have a whole range of online tutorials you can access them on YouTube, and this is our YouTube channel here. And you can also link to them from the counter website. And there is, again, a YouTube tutorial specifically about open access content. So I hope you find those resources helpful as well. We will send a link to the recording of this webinar, and we will also send you a PDF of the slides that we've used today. Now I'm just going to check, Paula, is there anything that we have failed to mention?
I don't think so. They might like to have a look at the frequently asked questions page as well. There's masses of really useful information on the website, so do go and have a look at it. Absolutely, absolutely. And there's going to be more frequently asked questions soon because Paula's doing a great job of updating those. So yes, do use the website. And of course, the other option is always to send us an email, and we're always happy to hear from you if you have questions. Well, thank you very much for listening. We hope you found it helpful. Thank you. Bye. Oh, thank you, everybody who's posting their thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Leah. I think I'm going to close it